Good morning. There we go. Happy Friday. I'm Leora Lanz, Assistant Dean of Academic Affairs and Chair of our Master's Program, teaching our marketing courses at the grad and undergrad level. And it is a pleasure to be here today with all of you who are here in person, and just as many, if not more of you, who are also joining us via Zoom today. So to those of you who are watching us electronically, welcome to you too. Now, Lisa Lutoff-Perlo joins us today, not just as our Dean's Distinguished Lecture Guest, but also because she's had a chance to visit with some of our students and meet some students as our executive in residence for this semester. And we are grateful to you, Lisa, for your wisdom and your time and joining us. I have a few highlights I want to share about Lisa first. As one of the few American women leading a multi-billion-dollar company, Lisa Lutoff-Perlo is a trailblazer in the global hospitality industry. She is recognized as the driving force behind transforming and redefining today's new luxury cruise experience and building demand with unparalleled brand vision and stewardship, award-winning guest service and operational expertise, and an innate ability for building high-performing, culturally inclusive teams, among others. Taking the helm as president and CEO of Celebrity Cruises in 2014, Lisa led the company into an era of unprecedented growth, including record financial performance and shareholder value. And I just want to share quickly, it was in 2019 where Lisa and I actually had the first opportunity to connect, because I promise I'm not a stalker, Lisa, but I am a professional fan. I had the chance to hear Lisa on a podcast and I was won over and immediately wanted to find out more about this individual and her spirit and her philosophy. And you may not know this, but you're definitely a guiding force for how I behave because I watch you. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I'm honored.
And it means a lot that you're here. Before I turn it over to Dean of Naja, for this, what will be an engaging and fabulous conversation, there is a short video that we want you to watch with us, which will be very telling about what Lisa's thoughts are, philosophies are, and how she serves as a leader.
Teach your daughters to worry less about fitting into the glass slipper and more about shattering the glass ceiling. Working in the company for 30 years, I've had a lot of different positions where I've been the first woman to have those roles. I actually asked for a president and CEO job 3 times before I got a yes. Now as president and CEO of Celebrity, it does feel really good to be the first woman leading this great organization.
It took me 19 years. I started sailing as a cadet, and then I spent 13 years coming up through all of the different ranks. And then in 2015, Lisa Lutoff-Perlo asked me to come over to Celebrity as the first female American captain in the world.
This maritime world has always been a male world. 10 years ago, cruise ship companies never replied back to me, except Celebrity. Celebrity hired me as a second officer. Now I'm staff captain.
Before I went away to sea, everybody I spoke to told me it was going to be hard. I needed to be tough. I couldn't show emotion. I needed to really be a man. And then I came to Celebrity and gender just wasn't important anymore. In 2015, 3% of our bridge team fleet-wide was female. Today, it's over 22% on all of our ships in our fleet, with the Celebrity Edge coming out with 30% of the bridge team being female. So it's not just something that we put out into the world where we want to close the gender gap. We actually have the numbers to back it up.
I am exceptionally proud of what we have accomplished, and I am very lucky to be surrounded by these amazing women.
As we built more ships, the last 10-15 years, we were pioneer on gender equality, hiring women from all over the world.
Whenever you bring diversity into an organization, the creativity and the productivity are amplified.
In such a male-dominated industry, gender equality is definitely something where we can make meaningful change.
We have just hired our 3rd woman captain.
We hired Micheline, the first African woman to ever work on the bridge of a cruise ship. Which brings me to the next part of the story, our partnership with the Malala Fund and our godmother, Malala Yousafzai.
Malala is the perfect godmother for Celebrity Edge because we decided that we needed a godmother who was equally transformative and heroic.
Celebrity Cruises believes in equality. They're not just saying it, but they're doing it. With its diverse crew and smart and strong women at its helm, this ship represents how unexpected but extraordinary partnerships can lead change for girls.
To ignore 50% of the population just doesn't make any sense.
We can't stop and be happy with where it is now. We have to keep pushing forward and allowing young girls who might not know that this is a possibility for them, that they can do it too.
Celebrity is leading the industry in this field, and others are following.
Women in my field have taught me if we're not equal, society will never progress.
Balance and diversity and inclusion make for a much better environment and a much better culture. And that is not only transformative for the brand, but really transformative for the world.
We are very excited to welcome Lisa Lutoff-Perlo, CEO of Celebrity Cruise Line, to the School of Hospitality Administration, or Shaw as we call ourselves. So a warm welcome to you and welcome to Shaw, Lisa.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So the big reason actually we do the Distinguished Speaker Series is to invite trailblazing senior leaders who have led transformative change so that students can see the person behind the title. So we want to get to know you, and you've achieved, and you are one of the leaders who have been transformative, as we just saw in the video. But before we get to your professional success, we want to get to know who you are. And I know that you are from just a short distance away from Boston and Gloucester. So let's start by, if you can tell us a little bit about your life in Gloucester. How was it growing up?
Hello, everyone here in person and joining us virtually. It's really a pleasure to be here. First and foremost, I love visiting colleges and speaking to faculty and students. It's one of my favorite things, but also it's wonderful to come back to my home state of Massachusetts. I did grow up in Gloucester, which is, I don't know, maybe 40 or 50 miles from where we are right now. Small fishing town, and everyone in town, other than probably my family and relatives, were either Portuguese or Italian, and they made their lives fishing, going out fishing. Have any of you heard of the perfect storm? That was what I didn't realize. It was those mostly men that went down with that fishing boat were all classmates of mine. So you can see that people really dedicated their lives to fishing and how they made their livings for their family, and just love the water, love the sea. And that's never changed for me, as you can tell. And my parents, when I was just a little girl, owned a coffee shop, and then they owned restaurants. And so the ocean and hospitality started for me when I was, out of the womb. And I always find it really serendipitous that I ended up in the hospitality business in cruising on the oceans. And so I think I ended up where I was supposed to be, unbeknownst to me at the time. And I left Massachusetts. I've always been in hospitality. I was in hotels for many years in Massachusetts. And then this opportunity came up that I wasn't really looking for. When we were at dinner last night, we had some students with us who very much knew what they wanted to do, and others who just hadn't figured it out yet. And I would say for me, I didn't figure it out for a really long time. And when I was in my mid-20s, I decided that maybe hotels and the things that I was doing in the hospitality business in hotels, which was mostly related to sales, was probably not, where I wanted to end up. And I'm dating myself by telling you I looked in the Boston Globe in the Health Wanted section, and I found a position in downtown Boston, right in the heart of downtown Boston, with a travel company, and selling cruises was the position. And I said, what the heck? And then I applied for that position and got it. Didn't really love it. And then I ended up applying for a position at Royal Caribbean, which is our parent company. And I got that job on May 6th, 1985. And here I am all these years later, 30. I was listening to that video. It was 30 years now. I've been with the company for 36. So yeah, so you sort of never know where you're going to end up. And sometimes even if you don't have a plan, it works out.
Well, now we know the love for restaurants and hospitality. Did you ever work when you were growing up in your parents' restaurant?
Yeah, well, when in the coffee shop, I think I was 6. And my mom turned over a milk crate and put me at the cash register, making change for the customers who took their coffee to go. And you know, it's interesting because I think I've always had an outgoing personality. And so I was, you know, I was a novelty for people who came in to see this little 6-year-old making change behind the counter. So yeah, I started working very young, Dean. Yes, I sure did. And still going at it all these years later.
I was thinking I'm going to say, did you have a part-time job in high school or maybe middle school? But I didn't realize it would be at the age of 6. So that's absolutely amazing.
Yes, I did. My dad used to wake us up every weekend morning at 5 o'clock, my sister and I, to take us to the restaurant to serve breakfast because we waitressed. So yes, so that's where I spent most of my time. And you know, it's interesting because we have about 20,000 crew members across our fleet, and I have a healthy respect for the amazing job that they do and how hard their jobs are. And so I think as a leader, one of the things you realize is having done something gives you a whole different appreciation and respect for those who are currently doing that. And I just think that's a really nice experience to have.
You know, we have a requirement that every student has to do 2 internships. And I'm very fond of saying that the very first internship should be a line level job. Yes. You need to clean rooms, you need to go and just, you know, cut onions maybe in the kitchen or whatever, the line level job. And hopefully after listening to Lisa, no one's going to push back on that and say, I want a managerial position right up front. This may be your only chance. So great. So let's, and then you went to college in Boston.
Yeah, at Bentley in Waltham for accounting. And when I was waitressing while I was in college, people used to always ask me, what are you majoring in? And I would say accounting, and they'd say, you're never going to be an accountant. And they were right. I was never an accountant, but I will tell you that education was priceless in terms of, you know, what I'm ending up doing for a living, because no matter what you do, the financial aspect of, you know, of the company that you're in or the property that you're in or the function that you're in is critically important. And so even if you don't study that as a primary subject, you really do need to understand balance sheets and profitability and EBITDA and shareholder value and EPS and all of those things that are the real reason I wake up every day and go to work.
Well, thank you for saying good words. I have a PhD in accounting.
There you go. I know, that's right. That's right. That's right. Well done.
Thank you. So when you were working for the travel agency selling cruises, did you get a chance to go on some cruises and travel the world, or was it only selling and okay, you can just see them on the brochures and sell?
I went on a couple. You know, I took that position without having ever been on a cruise and not really knowing much about cruising. Again, you know, I grew up in a small town and then I went to work in hotels. So cruising really wasn't a part of my experience in life, or professionally, or traveling, even vacationing. And so I took this position without ever having been on one. And then, yeah, I went on a couple, but I wasn't only in that job for a year. And then the person who was the salesperson for the cruise line that I ended up going to work for came into our agency one day and said he was getting promoted and needed to move to Miami and his position was available. And oh, by the way, if you're interested, you should send your resume. And, you know, I'm not going to spend a long time on this story because I'm sure we have a lot of things to talk about. But one of the things that's been interesting in my career is that I have had to fight really hard for everything that I've wanted. And that job was the first thing I had to fight really hard for, because I did apply for his job and I wasn't selected for his job. They actually hired a guy who, I'll never forget his name. His name was Art Gregory. You know how some things just stick with you for your life. That was like, what, 36 years ago. And And so but I was told I came in second. I'm like, you know, who wants to be told that, right? I came in second. Okay, great, thank you. And I ended up going to an event for the cruise line in New York, again, because we were a big producing agency, and I went on the ship and I asked to meet him because he was our salesperson, and they said, oh, he's no longer with the company. So he didn't even make it through his probationary period, but they never even called me back. You would think if I was second choice, right, and the first person didn't work out, they would say, are you still interested? He didn't work out, but they didn't. So anyway, I had to fight really hard for that job. So I applied all over again. I had to interview all over again. And then they finally hired me. Just like in that video where I had to ask for this position 3 times, I had to ask for that position a few times too. But
yeah, I think that's a very important lesson that you know, you have to fight for any success, and you know, regardless of male or female. And I know women are really discriminated against, so you really have to pursue things that you want with a passion. So that's a great lesson. So after that, you are at Royal Caribbean now, and so this was like in the mid 80s. How was the atmosphere for women? What jobs did you have, and did you face any stress at work?
I was in sales, and the interesting thing is I took over the position from a gentleman, and most of the travel advisors are women, and so they always loved having him come in, and he was a pleasant distraction to their day. So when I came in, it was like, okay, and you realize that when you come in after someone that is pretty popular for different reasons, you just have to find a different way of working. But I've never found discrimination in sales. I was actually the first 21 years of my career, I was in sales and marketing, and you don't really think about gender in those roles because there are so many women and men in those roles. And it was a great culture, and it was a very inclusive culture in that regard. It was only in 2005 when I went into operations where I realized there was a huge gender gap in our industry in operations that was just traditional and really needed to change not only the diversity but also the culture. And so I think that was my first run in where it really hit me in the face that there was a job to do.
So there must be something in that company that you've obviously stayed for so long, and you didn't face any issues in sales, but you moved into operations, and now you're running into some roadblocks, you know, here and there, but there is something in the overall culture that made you stay. So what was that, and how did you navigate the issues you're having with this idea that you really love this company and you want to stay here?
Well, you know, I think what's really important to anybody that is looking to join a company is that you truly understand the culture of the organization at the very top of the organization. And for me, knowing that the culture at the top of the organization was a culture that really wanted change and looked at me as someone who was a change management agent and who looked at me for these opportunities, not because of my subject matter expertise. You know, when I'm running Marine and I don't know the first thing like Captain Kate does about driving a ship, or I'm leading the engineers in the company and I've never fixed an engine or had to deal with technical issues on the ships or HVAC issues on the ship or fuel consumption and, you know, new technologies and new systems, you realize that you're selected for roles for different reasons other than subject matter expertise. And so within the very top of the company, that desire for change and that desire for diversity and cultural transformation was at the top of the list, which is, I think, the primary reason I was selected for the role, outside of the fact that I had been pretty successful in the other positions that I held. And so I think that that's the thing that kept me where I am, and that's the thing that kept me going, and that I knew that it wasn't going to be easy. But I actually said to the person who hired me and put me in that role in 2005, when it was so hard for me, I really was not accepted at all. And I called him one day and I said, why did you put me here? Why did you even ask me to do this? And why didn't you tell me what I was going to encounter? And he said, because I was afraid you wouldn't do it. And so he was probably right. Although I usually like a good challenge, but but listen, you persevere and you just do the right thing, and you realize over time, if you're on the right side of what needs to happen, it usually works out.
That's a very important, I think, two big things that you need to take away from this. One is, many times I hear students saying, well, I want sales, or I want front desk, or, you will be doing that job for a short time, hopefully, and then you'll keep rising and you will be managing people at some point. And so you are going to run up against these obstacles, and you need to be obstinate and say, I'm going to make the change. And it takes one person to make the change. And you see in Lisa, someone who has made the change. You've been helm of that company for so many years now. And you've made a lot of accomplishments and you've achieved a lot of things. So what are some of the things you want to talk about today in your tenure as the head of that company?
I think people ask me, did you always think you were going to be president and CEO of Celebrity or in your company? And I've been in this company for 36 years. And my honest answer is no. I never found myself where I am right now. And I never found myself on the path that I ended up taking either. And I think people say, what would you tell your younger self? I think I would tell my younger self to really be open to all of these different opportunities and all of these forks in the road that you find along your way and in your career. Because the thing that I learned all these years later and looking back is that you never always understand where your journey is going to take you, but you realize if you're open to it and if you think you want to be behind the front desk forever, you might end up as a chef in the kitchen, and maybe that's a stretch, but I always wanted to be the head of sales. That was my dream job. I spent 17 years in all of these progressive positions within our sales organization with the single ambition of running sales for Royal Caribbean at the time, because that's the brand that hired me. And that was the only brand in our company at the time. We've grown significantly in so many different ways since then. And then that same person that brought me into this operational role at Celebrity, where I said, why did you do this to me? He moved me one day into marketing. He just came into my office and said, listen, I think you have a lot more potential. I think you're sort of a rising star in the company. I'm going to swap some people. I'm going to take a couple of marketing people and put them in sales. I'm going to take a couple of salespeople and I'm going to put them in marketing. And you're one of those couple of people I'm going to move. And I just felt like my world ended. And my career was over. I was like, I had my resume out because I was just like, okay, then I'm never going to fulfill my dream. And now to this day, he isn't in the company anymore, but he still teases me and said, how did that work out for you? And I guess it worked out. I guess, yes, very nicely is what I say, because he then took me out of marketing at Royal Caribbean and brought me over as head of operations at Celebrity and hotel operations, which is all the hospitality part of the business, right? You're all in the hospitality part of the business. And that was everything that touched the guests. So that's what I was in charge of there. And it was the first time in 21 years I left the brand that I started with as well and went to that other sort of, everybody looked down on that brand. Oh, that brand, it's not Royal Caribbean, it can't be any good. But it actually is quite good. And so you really have to think about, trying new things, doing different things, getting out of your comfort zone, because it's really easy not to, but it's much harder to do that. But I think the payoff in the long run is much, much greater.
So I want to go back to something that we saw in the video, which is the bridge crew, which is only about 2 to 3% industry wide. And when you took over as president, that's what you are now faced with. And so what was your reaction and what did you do about it? And how did you go about doing something about it?
Well, it was really interesting because I had pretty high level positions before this one. I was the first woman to run hotel operations for Celebrity. After 7 years in that role, I was the first woman to run all of operations at Royal Caribbean, which was hotel and marine. And within those roles, you have a lot of leaders who are working with you or for you that you inherit. And sometimes if you don't have enough influence, control, or power, and I know some of those words are could be negative if you allow them to be, but they also can be a force for good. And that's where you want to be able to use those things that you ultimately have to do the right thing and make the change that's really needed in whatever area that you're in. And so when I was in those previous positions, my ability to control or influence and the power that I had was, I won't say it was insignificant, but it was, as a leader, you don't feel like you can force people to do something that they, might not think is right. Or Captain Kate is a great example. I met Captain Kate when I was executive vice president of operations at Royal Caribbean. And she was a staff captain. She had been a staff captain at Royal Caribbean for 9 years. And the person who ran Marine at the time, who worked for me, we kept having captain positions open up. And I had met Kate at a conference and got to know her. And if you ever get the chance to meet Captain Kate, and hopefully you will take a celebrity cruise someday and you'll get to meet Captain Kate. She's unbelievable. The minute you meet that woman, you know she's special. You know she's a special leader. You know she's a great captain, and you know that she should be promoted if she's been a staff captain for 9 years. And I just kept saying, as we had these captain openings, what about Kate? What about Kate? Oh, her time will come, Lisa. Her time will come. And I was like, every time he said that, I just got a little more frustrated. And so then after 2 years, I was appointed to this role. And the first thing I did was call Kate and say, hey, would you like to, and she had been at Royal Caribbean for 9 years. And would you like to join me at Celebrity? Because I needed to do two things. I needed to diversify culture and I needed to diversify gender. And I was a newly appointed woman CEO. There was there were so many things being said about that in the industry. And I said, all right, I have to make a big move, right? You have to make a big move when you first do that really is going to help everyone understand what you stand for and what you're going to do and what your platform is going to be. And so I said, I really need a woman captain. Would you be willing to come with me? And she said, hell yes. And she has just been everything I thought she would be and more. And and to this day, she's still the only American woman at the helm of a mega cruise ship. And she's extraordinary. And then that was the first step. And that was, we had 3% women on the bridge at the time. And that video is a few years old. We're up to 30% women across our fleet on all of our bridges. And at that point, it was 22%. And that was a few years ago. And then you saw Patrick and Manolis, who work with me every day. And yes, it's important to me, but it's important to them too. And I think that that's one of the things I always want to make sure I get across, is that it's not just me as the woman running the brand that cares about this. It's also the great men that I work with who are completely committed to gender equality and finding these amazing women all over the world.
So I guess timidity is not one of the hallmarks of a great leader. She came into that position and you said, I'm going to make a statement, and you did make a statement. I guess my next cruise on Celebrity is going to be with Captain Kate in charge. If all of you guys have, do you guys have Instagram accounts?
TikTok? Find Captain Kate. You'll love her. She's terrific. She has 3.3 million followers on TikTok. Is that crazy?
It's incredible.
It's incredible.
I have to make an account on TikTok.
Yeah, you did. We talked about that. We talked about that.
Yes.
So on Monday, I'm going to call you and see if you have your TikTok all set up.
So actually, there's one more thing that I do want to and ask you and see if you can give us some insight into that. Early in 2020, you put out a very, very special voyage with an all-female crew. So can you talk a little bit about that? How did that come about?
Sure. So every year we have a planning session, and you're gonna be used to that. When you go into your careers, you're going to look at your long-term planning and your strategic planning, and then your annual planning. And so one of the things that we were talking about when we were at our annual planning meeting with the leaders of the brand, I think it was directors and above, and so there were probably 30 or 40 of us in the room thinking about what are some of the bold things that we would like to be able to do. And we had celebrated International Women's Day on our ships for a couple of years, celebrating the 30% and, you know, celebrating all of the women mariners. And one of the ideas that came out of the planning day was, what could we do in 2020 for International Women's Day that would really be, or anyway, for any International Women's Day, it wasn't even 2020. What could we do in the future for International Women's Day that would really put an exclamation point on the progress we had made about gender equality? And one of the ideas was, we need to be the first cruise line to have an all-female bridge team. And we need to think about when we want to do that and when we could do that. And so I don't know, they said 2 or 3 years. I said, oh my gosh, that would be phenomenal. And Manolis, one of the gentlemen you saw in the video, said, why do we have to wait 2 or 3 years? Why don't we do that next year? And this was our 2019 planning session. And I looked at him, the champion of gender equality. I said to Manolis, seriously, we can do that? We have enough women on our bridges across the fleet in every single position that we could have an all-female bridge and make history in our industry. It's like, of course we do, Lisa. What do you think we've been doing all this time? So I said, great. And within 2 weeks, we had our bridge for March 8th, 2020, manned by all women. And then we decided, let's not stop at the bridge. Let's have every leader across the entire operation as a woman. And we did. And that was an amazing time for me, because I sailed on that cruise and we had some amazing women guests as well who had been very transformative in their own right. And taking a photo with all of those women on that day on that ship, I just remember the looks on their faces and just how truly proud they were, and also how in their own minds, they never thought that they would ever see that in their lifetime. And so it was pretty special. And it was the culmination of a lot of hard work. And it was a great event. And as much as we all loved it and we were all proud of it, our guests had the best time ever. You know, they celebrate all of these things with us. And I think, if I could just digress for a moment, one of the things that I also said when I took this position was, having been in the business for 30 years at the time, and having been in sales and marketing, and understanding our industry and our need to differentiate and how you want to build a brand. Because at the end of the day, all of the things that you do and that we've talked about are the right things to do and good things to do, and they're filled with purpose, and they make you feel like you've actually made a difference, in addition to being a CEO within a publicly held company on the S&P 500. But, you know, you also need to understand it's really good for business. You know, you can read all that you want to read around how diversity helps businesses be more profitable. And that's because, like Kate said, and like Patrick said, when you have different voices at the table, you're going to get the best outcome. And the other thing is, consumers now are voting with their wallets more and more, and they're choosing brands that stand for the same and care about the same things that they do. And when I took the helm of this brand 7 years ago, that was the direction I wanted to take for Celebrity. I wanted to be a brand that people knew that not only did we offer amazing award-winning vacations, which we do. We're the most highly awarded brand in our industry, but we care about the world at large, whether it's gender equality, diversity and inclusion, sustainability, the environment. I mean, these are the things that we really care about. And so that was the direction we took. We took the direction of, these are the things as a brand for vacations we want to focus on, so that we're best in class, and we want to build our brand on a foundation of purpose. And so when I saw our guests react to that cruise the way that they did, it was really heartwarming for me to know that I was right, because there were a lot of people who told me, you're crazy. Doesn't matter, doesn't improve shareholder value. What are you doing? You should be thinking about something else. And I fortunately work alongside a team that believes the same thing. And we've worked really hard over 7 years to position Celebrity in a unique way in our industry. And so that's, I think, something that we should all think about as we're taking on roles in companies and doing things with our career.
That's absolutely incredible. If you are ever crazy enough to put another cruise like that Sign me up. I will be on that cruise. There is one more thing that we saw, your partnership with the Malala Foundation.
Oh,
Last night at
yeah.
dinner, you just explained, and that was just such an incredible experience. But can you take a step back and tell us, how did that partnership come about, and describe that event that happened when she actually came?
It was another outcome of something that was really important to us as a brand when we were designing and building the Edge series of ships. And you saw the ship you saw that I was visiting in the yard was Edge. And the profile of the ship that you saw in the video was the Celebrity Edge. And another really lovely and unique opportunity I had when I took the helm of Celebrity was we were in the process of, for the first time, I think in 8 years and the first time in 10 years, designing a new series of ships for the brand. And what when I was appointed to this role, I remember after 3 times asking for the job, when I was finally given the job, I remember sitting in my office, my new office. And I remember thinking to myself, be careful what you wish for. And I thought, okay, you finally got this job. What makes you think that you're going to be able to do this when many others before you have done a pretty good job, but they haven't really transformed the brand or the financials the way the board wanted the brand and financials transformed? I'm thinking, oh, what am I going to do? So this unique opportunity was going on at the time because the brand was building this new ship, this new series of ships. So I had the opportunity to work with our partners in New Build that help us design our ships and my own team. And I went in and looked at the general arrangement of the ship. Some of you are, many of you are in real estate development, and you look at these properties and you look at these assets and you look at the design of them all. And so you're going to look at GAs and you're going to think about that. Well, I walked in and I saw this GA on the wall and I said, no, this really isn't going to do it for the brand. I don't see anything here that would give me a high level of confidence that this really will be a transformational class of ship for the brand. So we all got back to work and we redesigned this ship, and everybody was great. The shipyard was great. Our new build partners were great. My team was great. And we pretty much started over. I mean, not 100%, but I'd say 80%. So when it was all said and done and we knew what we had and we knew what we were going to launch into the world and we knew how transformational it was and how many things we were doing on this ship that had never been done before and how it was really going to just propel Celebrity to the top from, new guests that would think about cruising before, and new rates we were going to be able to charge that we had never been able to charge before, which, translated into profitability. We said, okay, this is a transformational ship. We really need a transformational godmother. And so as we sat around the table, the same team of people said, who are the most transformational women you know? And, for the first name off your tongue comes Malala Yousafzai, because she's like an honest to God hero, as our chairman says. And then we all looked at each other and said, you really think we can get Malala to be the godmother of Celebrity Edge? And we all said, no, but we're going to try. And until I get a no, it's not a no. I might not have a yes, but until someone tells me no, I'm not going to give up, which is just kind of, what I'm like in general. So we set out, and it was really, really, really hard. But I think a lot of the things that we had done as a brand and built our reputation on, and the things we cared about, education, young girls, women of color, women from all over the world, that, we provide opportunity for, for them to have jobs and provide for their families in countries that they never would be able to do that. It resonated with the Malala Fund and with Malala. And so, we had all these women on video just, that we sent to her and just said, please say yes, with this beautiful book, inviting her to be the godmother and telling her all the reasons why. And her foundation is very protective, and so on and so on. And it dragged on for over a year. And every time the team came to me, I said, have we gotten Malala yet? And they were no. And they were really trying to convince me to go find a different godmother, because the longer it went on, the more difficult the foundation was in getting the approval. They said, they really didn't want me to be disappointed. So they wanted to refocus my energy and thinking on someone else. And I said, has she said no? Have they said no? And they said, well, no, they haven't said no, but they haven't said yes. I said, well, until they say no, it's a yes for me. And I'll never forget the day I called Richard, our chairman. Oh my gosh, their board meeting was in February. He called me 10 times. Do we have an answer? Do we have an answer? And I said, no. And he was like, because he said, Lisa, you really think you can get Malala? I said, no, Richard, but I'm going to try. So anyway, the day that the foundation said yes, he was in Vail with his family. They were on their ski vacation, and it was 10 o'clock at night, Miami time. And it was 7 o'clock their time. So I picked up the phone and I called him, and he knew what time it was. He said, Lisa, why aren't you asleep yet? Because I go to sleep very early. I said, because Richard. And he said, she said yes. And I said, she said yes. And his whole family was screaming. And, fast forward to naming day. And we were talking a little bit about this. I will never forget naming day, when Malala was on the ship and she was meeting with all the young women across our operation. And they were, our whole crew was in tears that Malala Yousafzai was on that ship, and she was the godmother for the ship. And they were so proud. And it was also at a time in this country that was terrible. There was all of the anti-Muslim sentiment. The borders were closed. Muslims weren't being allowed in. And every day, my heart would break more and more about what was going on. And every day I said, I'm going to get a call, and Malala and or her family or the foundation is going to say, she's not going to come. We're just not going to do this right now. America's just not the place you want to be. But the call never came, and she showed up. So then we're on the ship, and it's naming day, and I'm walking in beside Malala, because usually the godmothers walk in with our chairman, but Malala felt more comfortable walking in with a woman. So Richard and the captain were in front of us, and they were introduced into the room. And there we are standing there, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, how's this gonna go when we walk in the room? I had a really good feeling, but come on, we don't know, right? You just don't know with what's going on. So then they said, ladies and gentlemen, Lisa Lutoff-Perlo, President, CEO, and Malala Yousafzai, the godmother of Celebrity Edge. And we walked into the room. The theater was jam packed, because Celebrity Edge had more publicity than I've ever seen in my life. Everybody jumped up. The room was shaking. It was so thunderous, the applause, the cheering, the whistling, the happiness. And I'm getting goosebumps telling the story, because I will never forget that moment. And I looked at her face, and someone told me later, her dad looked at her mom and said, see, I told you it would be okay. And in we walked, and we got on stage with Malala, and the crowd wouldn't sit down. And I just remember sitting there thinking, Nate Berkus was our MC that day, and Malala was the godmother, and Andra Day was the singer performing Rise Up. And I just sat there and I was like, I just can't believe this day is happening. It's a day I will never forget for the rest of my life. It was pretty special. And and that was wonderful. So she ended up being godmother of Celebrity Edge.
That is incredible. Lisa, you have goosebumps thinking about it. Just listening to your story is it is so emotional, and it is just so amazing. Okay, so I want to very briefly go back to early 2020. The pandemic has hit us, and you've got cruises that are on the oceans. Mm-hmm. And so what is some of the biggest challenges you had to tackle at that point?
So you went from my biggest high to my biggest low. Thank you. That's wonderful. All right, way to bring me down on this beautiful Friday. Well, sure enough, as it happened, the cruise on International Women's Day was March 8th. It started on March 8th. It started on a Sunday. On Wednesday, I left the ship because I unfortunately couldn't sail for the whole week. I flew back to Miami. I went into the office on Thursday. And when I was on the ship, early March 2020, that's when it was all percolating, right? COVID, this isn't just the flu. This is pretty serious. we had probably gotten about 250. That ship was completely sold out, and we probably couple of weeks before leading up had about 250 rooms cancel just because of what was going on and people getting nervous. So I got back to the office on Thursday. On Friday, we went home. I think it was the 15th of March, 2020. And I just went back to the office on Monday, October 18th. So we left our offices. I remember walking into the office thinking it's surreal because it's exactly how I left it almost 19 months ago. And that Sunday, when Edge came back into port and that wonderful cruise was over, we shut down. And it took us until June of 2021. And we thought we'd be back in business in June of 2020 for our ships to start sailing again. And sure enough, the first ship to sail out of the US on June 26th was Celebrity Edge. And sure enough, Captain Kate was at the helm. So that was a lovely story. But yeah, so for the immediate few months after the shutdown, we just had one thing we had to focus on, and that was getting all the ships shut down, getting all the guests home from wherever they were in the world, and they were all over the world, and getting our crew home, which proved really problematic because so many countries were shutting down at the same time. And we were chartering planes. We spent a fortune so our crew could get home. But you can't even spend a fortune and charter a plane in a country where they won't let planes in and they won't even let their citizens in. So we did not get our entire crew home until August of 2020, after we shut down in March of 2020. And then it was just parking them somewhere. And Captain Kate, during that time, a lot of ships, especially if they were in the Caribbean at the time, because that was March, stayed off the Bahamas for a very, very, very long time. And it wasn't just our own company and our own brands, it was all ships from all the different companies. And they developed a real camaraderie down there. And Captain Kate started what she coined #hope floats. And she would keep in touch with the crew all over the world. She would keep in touch with our guests all over the world. They had, they all blew their horns every night at a certain time. And it took us a long, long time. It took us borrowing billions of dollars to stay afloat, pardon the pun, terrible pun, but it's been a really, really tough time. I never in my life thought what would happen on Celebrity Edge would happen. And I never in my life or in my career ever thought that a complete shutdown of our industry because of this horrible pandemic would happen, but it did. And what you realize is when you're flying really high and when everything is going wonderfully, it can just all change. And then you have to pivot. You have to pivot yourself, as we've all done. You've done it within your, within your studies, you've done it within your lives. But you also have to realize when you're, running a brand or a business, you have to think very differently about how you lead people through such a terrible, terrible time in not only our industry, but even in their own careers. And there was, as you can imagine, as we just kept being shut down and kept being shut down and kept being shut down. Hospitality took a hit in general, don't get me wrong, a really big one, and is still recovering, but nothing like our industry. We were decimated. We were all just shut down for a very long period of time. And getting people through that when they're so uncertain about their own future is, it's probably been the biggest challenge of my professional career.
The message that I'm taking is that you can kick a true leader, but you cannot kick her down. So she had the high, and then she's faced with the pandemic. And you can read about in the media how she handled the employees who were stuck for months on end, and the operational and the financial challenges. So hallmark of a true leader. We are getting close to the end. So I do want to ask you, what lessons do you have? What advice do you have for this aspiring group of leaders who are entering and excited about entering this world?
One of the things that I truly love about what I do is that it's in the hospitality business. It is a unique business, and has so many dimensions to it. And, I've learned that even as I've looked at all the curriculum and talked to the different students about all the different aspects of hospitality, from, again, asset management to HR. And I think one of the things that I would say is you've chosen an amazing field to be a part of it. If you think about, these are serious jobs, which some people don't understand. When you say you're the president and CEO of a cruise line, are you always on ships? Do you work on this? Like, no, I'm grinding it out every single day, trying to get ourselves back in business, trying to get ourselves back to financial health, and having just come out of a pandemic. But even before that, it was certainly no cakewalk. It's complicated. We have machinery operating all over the world, and we all know what can happen to machinery on any given day. You put your head on the pillow hoping that political unrest doesn't derail you, or things that are happening in the different countries that you visit stay stable. So it's not an industry for the faint of heart, I will tell you that. But what it is an industry that provides something to people that no other industry does. And when I think of the memories that people tell me about when they've taken their vacations on celebrity, even when we were at dinner last night and we were talking about, what young people have kept, which was their boarding card from a celebrity cruise because it provided the greatest memory that they had ever had, or the gentleman sitting beside me whose family has been taking him on cruises for his whole life and loves celebrity because he's had so many wonderful vacations. Those are the things about this business that make it so wonderful and keep you going and want you to get back into business. Just like we fought so hard to get back into business, because this business that we've all chosen provides things for people that no other business does. And the other thing that people ask me is what really drove you to get back? And our crew. I can honestly say, hand on heart, that getting our crew back to work after almost 2 years, some of them with no job and no ability to provide for their families because they were in countries that there was no other things that they could do. They were just waiting to come back. And when I'm on the ships now, post-pandemic, and they're coming up to me, thanking me on behalf of their families for bringing them back and making sure they didn't lose hope along the way. These are the things that are really, really special about what we do. And so I would say, regardless of the field that you're going into, aim high, always do the right thing, care about people, use whatever position you're all going to have. You're in an amazing university with amazing deans and professors, and you have the whole world in front of you. And your whole lives and careers in front of you. And as you navigate your way through that, just think about all the opportunity that you have personally, which is pretty big, because the hospitality industry is the largest industry in the world. And that just presents so much opportunity and so much growth, regardless of your ambition. Work hard and be patient. Don't expect it to come all at once. But along your way, just try to do a little good every day, because, I love to see our stock price do well. It's what we all celebrate. It's what our shareholders want. It's how I'm judged every day, truly judged every day. But the way I judge myself is what I've been able to do that's good along the way, and opportunities I'm able to provide. I remember a young man coming in to see me. It's not just women that I really try hard to make sure they achieve their dreams. He came in and said, "How can I ever thank you for making every dream that I've had come true?" And I said, "Just do me a favor and pay it forward." And that's what I would also say is, whatever opportunities you're given, make sure you do the same for other people. That's what's going to make you feel really good at the end of the day. So
I hope you took all of that to heart. But the next segment is a fun segment where we ask you some rapid fire questions.
Oh, no, you didn't tell me about this. Okay.
So, no, some of these are very easy.
Okay, sure.
Not all of them, but some of them.
Okay.
So what's your favorite place to vacation?
Gloucester, Massachusetts. My home in Gloucester, Massachusetts, right by the beach I started going to when I was 6 months old.
So since we are on the topic of celebrity, which celebrity that you've not met that you would like to meet?
Bruce Springsteen.
Okay. can you give us the name of someone so big and said, I can't believe I met this person?
Tom Brady.
Okay, so we are in trouble next.
GOAT.
Now, and the next question is actually the last question. I have two more questions. So Boston cream pie or key lime pie?
Key lime pie.
Okay. The next question is a very sensitive question. So I hope you don't get into any trouble anywhere. You certainly might get.
You're on video. Shut the camera.
The camera. So New England Patriots or Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Team Brady all the way. Yep. Yep.
I hope everyone in Gloucester was listening.
They know. They're yeah. It's a family divided now because I switched. I switched my allegiance and my team. Yeah, I went with Brady.
So with that, Lisa, thank you so much. You are truly a trailblazer and a visionary leader. And not only are you leading celebrity in the right way, but you're showing everyone in the society that change can happen if even one person wills it to be. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.